Mario Kart World!
Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Bo Talks Games. Less than 36 hours remain until the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. Honestly, I still can't believe it. It doesn't feel real. But we have a lot to get into today, including confirmation that there will be no Switch 2 reviews from any outlets at launch. Nintendo did not send out a single Switch 2 review unit, so we'll talk about that and the implications of that. We did, however, get a new wave of previews for the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour and Mario Kart World, revealing some new details about Mario Kart World in particular I wanted to discuss. Hollow Knight Silksong had its Steam backend updated once more, which is sparking a debate of whether or not it will actually show up at one of the events this week. It is certainly possible, but I feel like we put on this clown makeup every few weeks. We have review scores for Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, one of the new Switch 2 launch titles. We also had another new Switch 2 game announced. It's a remaster of a very niche game, but still kind of cool to see. And then finally, Sony announced a state of play for tomorrow, which you might think it's weird for me to talk about in a Nintendo video, but trust me, there's going to be some Nintendo stuff in the state of play, or at least games that will be on Nintendo Switch 2. So that's what we're getting into today, and the first thing I want to cover is the lack of reviews for the console at launch. This was rumored and kind of talked about a few weeks ago. However, the rumor was that there would be little reviews, that only like the major outlets were going to get it. Well, it looks like IGN and the other top dogs in the game journalism sphere, not even there getting a Switch 2 and Mario Kart World early, which I think is really surprising, as we'll get into. So we have this article from Video Games Chronicle here, Andy Robinson. There are no Switch 2 reviews. Here's what that means for us and you. Nintendo's decision to not facilitate pre-launch Switch 2 reviews is disappointing news for everyone. I think it's mostly disappointing news for the people that do this for a living, like an Andy Robinson and everybody else. But of course, this does mean no reviews and proper coverage that isn't rushed for the audience, the people reading these articles and watching these videos. But also, it kind of puts everybody on an even playing field. And as Andy points out in this article, Nintendo's going to sell out of their Switch 2 stock anyway. They don't really need to have reviews for this console from mainstream media. They just don't really need it. They had some previews that we'll get into for Mario Kart and the Switch 2 and Welcome Tour that came out this morning. But realistically, do they need a Metacritic score for Mario Kart World on day one? I don't think so, because the console's going to sell out immediately. So don't expect any major reviews for this console. I mean, if we were going to get them, we probably would have gotten them by now. But still, it's just surprising to see such a shift from Nintendo. Now, they reached out for comment from a Nintendo spokesperson, and they said they decided not to send out Switch 2 review units to press ahead of launch because, quote, important features and updates will only be available via a system update on the day of the console's official release, June 5th. Now, we had heard about this. We kind of knew about this. It looks like Switch 1 games, backwards compatible games, don't work right now for the people that have gotten Switch 2s early. Switch 1 games don't work. Switch 2 games do work if you have a cartridge. However, it seems like there is going to be a massive system update on day one that enables a lot of features. Now, normally, that's not anything new. A day one update for a console, that's pretty expected. However, it looks like they're actually making it a day one update on June 5th. Usually those updates come out a couple of days before, but even as of when I'm recording, they haven't pushed this update out. Now, they're going to have to here in the next 12 to 24 hours because people in Australia will start getting the console, in Japan, of course, and then it'll trickle down to America and everywhere else. But yeah, there is a big day one update, and that's why they decided not to send out review units. And as Andy highlights in this article, it does mean that a lot of outlets and YouTube groups that would have received one otherwise, they're going to be more rushing out to get that content ready, especially in what is an extremely busy week for the games industry. Now we have a Summer Games Fest on Friday. We have a Sony State of Play tomorrow we'll talk about. We have the Xbox Showcase on Sunday. We have SGF Play Days, which is an in-person event where press gets to preview new games on top of them trying to manage the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. Also, I saw Death Stranding 2 codes went out to media people. So it's a busy week if you work in games coverage. However, once again, to the point, I just don't think it really matters to Nintendo. They don't need reviews. And now, and I say this, I'm completely biased because I am a YouTuber, but it is kind of nice as a YouTuber, a smaller creator, an independent creator. I'm on a level playing field with the likes of IGN and everyone else. So I don't know. It sucks. It sucks that they have to rush out the reviews now to hit their SEO, goals and all that. But frankly, for me, it absolutely benefits me. So I can't really pretend that I'm upset that there's no reviews. Especially when, once again, even without reviews, the console is already going to sell out. So it's not like people are going to wait to see the reviews before they decide to make a purchase. No, the stock's already sold, so it doesn't really matter. And these reviews and everything will become more important as we get to like Christmas and the stock lightens up, hopefully. But for now, it was going to sell out anyway. So reviews just don't really even matter, to be honest, in terms of like marketing the console. But I know I'm a little biased as a YouTuber, so let me know your thoughts on the lack of review coverage in the comments down below. We did also have this. I just wanted to highlight it. Not anything too groundbreaking in terms of news. However, we did get, it looks like, one final Creator's Voice spotlight. They call it a Creator's Voice special or edition or something like that. And it's actually the CEO of Nvidia. I think it's Jensen Huang. He did a 2.5 minutes Creator's Voice talking about working with Nintendo, making the chipsets for the Switch and Switch 2, and I really like this because he talks about Iwata a lot in this video, and by the end of it, he loops back to Iwata and his vision when they initially approached them for the Switch back in, you know, whenever it was, 2015 or something like that, right? So I recommend checking it out. Kind of gets you in the feels if you've been following this thing for a long time, and especially hearing him talk about Iwata was nice. It was nice to hear him just kind of, you know, be like, hey, this is Iwata's thing. Iwata did this, so definitely check out that. It was nice to see the CEO of Nvidia kind of just like gassing up the Switch 2, basically. That said, we did get a lot of previews for the Switch 2 this morning, both for the console, but also for Mario Kart World and for Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which we talked a little bit about yesterday. There was that overview trailer. However, the takeaway that I've really seen from a lot of these previews, and to be fair, these are like, you know, the hardcore OG Nintendo fans that have been in this industry forever. The takeaway is that Welcome Tour is actually a nice little treat. Should it be a package? Should it not? You know, I mean, it probably should, right? But from what I've read in the previews, basically, if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan that likes games like a WarioWare Twisted, for example, or just, you know, very, very, like, weird Nintendo games, you're probably going to enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour because it does kind of play into that weird angle of Nintendo and get into, like, the weird history segments there. So we have this preview from Steven Totillo over at the GameFile. He noted a couple of things here. He says he dropped Mario Kart World to play more Welcome Tour during his hands-on event, which is funny. And then he also said that Mario Kart World is huge. I thought this was an interesting stat. 10 minutes and 12 seconds to drive across the map. Now that doesn't really mean anything until you visualize it, but that is a pretty big world map, especially when you're driving at a high speed, right? So I'm not sure what the time is, for example, like from one end of Breath of the Wild's map to the other. Probably similar. I really have no idea what the ballpark on that would be, but 10 minutes to drive across the map, that sounds pretty good. Reading into his article here, talking about Welcome Tour, he says he liked it so much that he stopped his Mario Kart World session to go back to it early, and that is because Welcome Tour contains pure distilled gameplay and vintage Nintendo weirdness. The weirdness first. There are all these quirky demos of the system features. Shake the Joy-Con controllers as if they're maracas to feel the rumble. Sure, I did that when I played it back in April. Listen to the controllers rumble, change frequencies so that they replicate the sounds of Super Mario coins or a 1-up. Put the system in tabletop mode and then try to angle the stand so that the Switch 2 is leaning exactly 30 degrees, exactly 45 degrees, etc., and have the system use its tilt sensor to calculate how close you were. That is when I did not get to play, but that sounds pretty interesting. So, Welcome Tour, I gotta be honest, like, as we hear more and more about it, I know it should be a pack-in, absolutely. It is literally a tech demo, but I think this is a great introduction to the console tomorrow night or on Thursday when you get your hands on it, as just like a nice way to introduce you to the hardware. I think it's going to be a lot of fun as a hardcore Nintendo fan, but should it be free? Yeah, probably. Now, as for Mario Kart World, I mean, there's been so much footage released today from the people that got to go hands-on. I have not been following Mario Kart World as closely as some other people, so correct me if some of the stuff isn't new, but the notable things I saw, we saw at the beginning of the video, the clip of Mario saying Mario Kart World, which is pretty neat. It's a very low-quality clip, but we also had the unlock screens, and we've learned, I think this is new information, but we've learned that you unlock characters through Grand Prix. Like, the actual new characters, you unlock those in Grand Prix, and then you unlock the costumes doing any other activity in the game. I also saw a lot of talk in a couple of different previews about how wide the roads are. That is something I think a lot of fans have noticed, and it kind of like, it almost looks like, oh, the level design looks a little worse. It's not as tight as a Mario Kart 8 or a Mario Kart 7 or Wii, right? Previous Mario Kart games. But basically, in practice, they're saying, like, it doesn't really matter. When you're actually playing it, the width of the road, especially when there is 24 players, it just does not matter. It still feels like that core Mario Kart experience. And watching some of the gameplay, I'm using some footage from Video Games Chronicle here. Huge shout out to them. I'll have it linked down below. While I am very excited for the open world and the free roaming and all that, I'm actually kind of more excited to just, like, first things first, do all of the Grand Prix and just experience the tracks in their natural states instead of, like, the weird in-between segments and all that. Like, I just want to, you know, play it like a normal Mario Kart game first, unlock all the characters, and do it that way. And then from there, I mean, people are saying that there's a lot of P-switches. I think we knew there was a lot of P-switches, and it sounds like there's a good variety of them, so that's something I'll be chipping away at over the course of June, I think, trying to do all the P-switches, all of the challenges, unlocking all the costumes. Although I will say, people gave me a lot of crap back in April after the Mario Kart World Direct when I said I don't think they're hiding that much more to this game. Yeah, it doesn't look like they're hiding that much more to this game. I keep seeing other people make videos being like, oh, whoa, Mario Kart World is hiding so much more. It's clearly not. I mean, what they showed is what you get, and I think it looks really good, but to have been expecting more at this point, I think it was a little silly. Of course, there will be little things, different types of interesting P-switch challenges. There will be maybe some more costumes we don't know about, but I've still been seeing people say, like, there's just, like, a whole modes that they've been hiding and stuff like that. I'm just like, are you delusional? I mean, even right here, you can see that we now know there is only one alternate costume for Pauline. It was highly speculated that each character would have 5, like all of the main Mario cast. No, that's not even the case there. Pauline only has 2, or really just 1 unlockable skin. Yeah, they showed everything. They revealed their hands at that Mario Kart World Direct in April. I like Gene Park's preview over at the Washington Post. Definitely recommend reading that. But he was asked, how would you rate this Mario Kart compared to others after 7 hours of playtime? And he said, quote, it's easily the best one ever already, I think, although I will always have a soft spot for Double Dash. So previews for this are very high, and we'll be playing it in like 36 hours. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Hollow Knight Silksong. Yes, I feel like this happens every few weeks, maybe every few months, and people lose their minds. Is this finally the time? I don't know. Put on the clown makeup. We have a lot of events coming up that Hollow Knight could theoretically appear at. Well, coincidentally, as Wario64 notes here, Hollow Knight Silksong received updates to its packages tonight on its Steam database, one apparently receiving an update for the first time in 15 months. So they are updating Hollow Knight Silksong on the back end once again, but I just feel like this keeps happening, and every few months we're like, oh my goodness, this means Hollow Knight Silksong is about to appear at a showcase. It's going to shadow drop at, you know, Game Awards, or at a Nintendo Direct, or at a Sony State of Play, or at an Xbox showcase, and it's just on cycle every few weeks we do this. Is it finally time for Hollow Knight Silksong? I actually think it is. I'm not a huge Hollow Knight fan or anything, but I know it is an important game for a lot of people. I would like to give the first game another go and be excited for Silksong with you all. But based on this and just the fact that, I mean, we are so close to all these events, we have to be getting it. It's high time we get Hollow Knight Silksong. Probably not as a shadow drop. That's a big shadow drop to do, but maybe we get a date for it later this summer. In fact, I really hope it's not shadow drop, because there is so much other stuff going on right now. I feel like it would get, I'm not going to say it would get swallowed alive, because Hollow Knight's big enough to stand on its own, but it could probably benefit from just releasing, I don't know, in July or something. You don't need a shadow drop Hollow Knight. But yeah, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Do you think we're going to see Hollow Knight Silksong finally get a release date at SGF this week, or at one of the events in the coming weeks? Just wanted to highlight this really quick because it is an important Switch 2 launch title. We did get review scores for Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma on Switch 1 as well as on PC. Of course, Press don't have Switch 2, so they couldn't review the Switch 2 version. It seems pretty mixed. I've seen some people saying it's like the best Rune Factory ever, and that it's a great reinvention of the franchise. I've also seen some other reviews saying that it was kind of a disappointment, a little, you know, unpolished, that kind of stuff. So we will see how this one actually lands. Nintendo Life gave it a 9, Noisy Pixel gave it a 9. At the time of this tweet, it was at a 77 on Metacritic. However, if you actually check Metacritic, it's currently sitting at an 82, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't know why some reviews are so low. I mean, I guess they just didn't have that good of an experience with it, but other reviews are pretty high. And then if you look at the PC version, that one is a little bit lower at 77. So Rune Factory is one that's I've been excited for ever since it was announced back at the partner showcase last year, and then especially when I had a Switch 2 version announced. However, I will say, playing so much Fantasy Life over the past week has definitely made me, I don't want to say less excited for it, but also, like, I'm kind of fantasy farming game. I'm kind of drained on this exact type of game. I do want to play it still. I probably will get to it a little bit later in June. However, I think it has fallen down the priority list a little bit because of Fantasy Life. Next up, we had a new Nintendo Switch 2 game announcement. This is a completely random, very niche RPG, action RPG. However, we have the announcement of Anima Gate of Memories 1 and 2 Remaster. This was originally, I believe, a PS4 game, but watching the trailer, I think it looks pretty fun. Of course, it has that lower budget look to it, but if you are a fan of niche action RPGs, this is coming out later this year to PS5 as well as Switch 2 and some other platforms. So this looks pretty cool. I think it looks a lot of fun. We haven't had too many announcements like this for Switch 2 yet, of just like extremely niche things, right? We haven't seen NIS America jump on board with a ton of Switch 2 announcements. So cool to see this one getting a remaster on Switch 2 later this year. Just wanted to highlight it because, once again, we haven't been getting too many announcements for Switch 2 games, so it's nice to see more. And then the final story of the day is not a Nintendo story. However, I do think we will absolutely be seeing some Nintendo stuff in the State of Play, or games that will be on a Switch 2. PlayStation announced this morning at 6 a.m. State of Play returns tomorrow, June 4th. Watch live at 2 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Central Eastern Time on YouTube and Twitch for news and updates on great games coming to PS5. I did see someone else say that apparently the runtime is like 40 minutes, which sounds about in line for a State of Play. I know I made a video back in February or January when they did their last one saying I thought it was a great State of Play, a very controversial video. People did not like that State of Play, but I thought it was fantastic. And most notably to the Nintendo audience, there were at least 2 Nintendo things in that State of Play. However, the one I'm remembering right now was Warriors Abyss. Warriors Abyss was Shadow Drop. That's that Warriors roguelike spinoff from Koei Tecmo. That was announced and Shadow Dropped in the last State of Play, of course, also on Switch, as well as PS5 and PC and everything. So with the Switch 2 out now, or, coming out very soon, with SGF happening, with the Xbox Showcase, I think we will see some things in this showcase that will absolutely be coming out on Switch 2. Now, will they announce the Switch 2 versions at the same time? That remains to be seen. Certainly wouldn't be in the actual State of Play itself. It'll be on like the, various publishers' Twitter accounts to do that. But if you are a Nintendo fan, I think this is the first test of like, can we watch major showcases from other publishers and other people? Can we watch these showcases and expect big Nintendo news? Not literally from Nintendo, but major third-party stuff on Nintendo. I think yes. However, there is still that part of me that wonders if, let's say Resident Evil 9 is coming to Switch 2. That game is rumored to be announced this week. Hypothetically, if it comes to Switch 2, would it be announced alongside the other platforms, or would, for some reason, there be a deal in place to where the port of it is announced at a Nintendo Direct? That might be a thing, and in which case maybe there won't be too much here for Nintendo fans, but I don't know. I feel like there's going to be something here that we can expect to play on a Switch 2 in the coming weeks. Of course, I will be streaming this, so we have the Mario Kart stream tonight in just a few hours at 6 p.m. Pacific time, but then tomorrow at around 1:45, I'm going to be going live to react to the State of Play. It is an incredibly busy week for me. I have the Mario Kart stream tonight. I have a lot of work to do prepping for the Switch 2 launch. Then we have the State of Play stream tomorrow at 2 p.m. We have the Switch 2 midnight release at 9 p.m. my time. So I'm excited to pick up that tomorrow, obviously. Then on Friday, we have Summer Games Fest. I will be streaming that as well. Then we have the IO Interactive Showcase showing off the new 007 game that's coming to Switch 2. That's the same day. And then on Sunday, we have the Xbox Showcase, which I also expect to have a lot of exciting announcements. Even if they're not on Nintendo, I mean, Xbox Showcases have been pretty good recently ever since they gobbled up a bunch of publishers. Like, they have so many games to show off and announce. So if you are a fan of gaming beyond Nintendo, I mean, this is a crazy week for games. We have Nintendo Switch 2 and all of these events and so many announcements are about to happen. It is a good time to be a gamer and a very exciting time to be a Nintendo fan, but also just, a gamer in general. So that is going to do it for today's video. Of course, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Once again, I will be streaming tonight at 6 p.m. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with viewers. If you want to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe one more time with me before we enter the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World era, I think it'll be a lot of fun. Of course, as always, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch 2 coverage and content leading up to the launch. I guess we'll have one more video maybe before this thing comes out, although so many streams happening. Maybe this is my last video pre-launch. I'm not sure. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other Nintendo collecting channel at Azuma. Going to be doing a ton of Switch 2 stuff over there. Definitely subscribe to that channel. And as always, you can click on one of these 2 videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks. Peace.